In a video statement that was released shortly after launching what now is being referred to as Operation Rising Lion, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said Israel is at a decisive point in its history and certainly is fighting to maintain its own security in the region. Absolutely, an absolute truth. So what can Christians across the world do to support the nation of Israel right now? Well, I don't know of anyone more suited to deal with that and a host of other issues that relate to Israel right now than our own president here at Family Research Council, Tony Perkins. He, of course, is the regular host here of Washington Watch and has his pulse on so many issues, and certainly Israel being one of those. Tony, thanks so much for joining us today. I know you've got a lot going on. We appreciate you taking time to be with us today.
Well, absolutely. And Jody, as always, thanks for filling in and doing such a great job on Fridays for me, as I generally am working on this week on Capitol Hill as I wrap up the week. And, of course, a lot, as you said, to talk about this morning. I woke up to a couple of text messages, one from the House Speaker and one from Ambassador Mike Huckabee in Israel, saying, pray. We have the whole country under a shelter in place. And of course, we watched last night as we were going to bed as this was unfolding. So this is a big moment, as you've pointed out. It's, I think, a very significant turning point. What I found, Jody, was kind of interesting last night is that one of the first statements out was from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, stating that this was a unilateral move by Israel. The United States was not involved in the strikes. And that's, quite frankly, encouraging to me because it shows that Israel realizes they have to stand on their own. Now, America has provided some material, and we are certainly supportive. But I think this is a new threshold of engagement by Israel, that they have conducted this operation without outside help. This is a big game changer, I think, in the Middle East.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tony. I was a little surprised with to begin with Secretary of State Rubio's comments. At first, I thought, man, it just sounds like weakness on the part of the United States, but the more I thought about it and have gone through this, I agree with what you're saying, and I think actually it's a good move for Israel to stand on its own, but also an effort to de-escalate to some extent. Some other countries, particularly the U.S., getting involved. I want to play a clip for you, Tony, from, or I'm going to get to clip number 1 here in just a second, but I wanted to read this verse for you. Numbers 23, verse 24. This is, of course, in the context of Balaam, who went to curse Israel, only to have that backfire, so to speak, and God blessed them. But in the midst of all that, verse 24 of Numbers 23 says, a people rise up like a lioness. They rouse themselves like a lion. They will not lie down until they devour the prey. And we have now Operation Rising Lion coming after this passage. Play clip 1, Tony, for me, and then, Tony, I'd like to get your response to this.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat.
Well, wow, powerful statements.
Yes, and unequivocal that they're going to see this through. And we've been seeing. I've been watching the collective body language from Israeli leaders and watching as they've been coming and going here in Washington D.C. That the window, they saw this window closing. And Iran was moving forward with the enrichment of their uranium and the ability to create a nuclear weapon. And you know, nobody has better intelligence than Israel. And when you look at, and we're early into this, and we're just getting some preliminary reports, but the Mossad was operating deep within Iran, and the ground action was choreographed just as the bombs were being dropped to try to limit the retaliatory actions of Iran. And I think, again, I want to go back because I think this point really is important, Jody. that Israel, and this concerned me, Israel was really leaning on America for a lot. They still do in terms of munitions and certain things, and we've structured it that way. We've got to get away from that. But Israel was not looking to the United States for success in this. I think more and more, even by the name of this operation, they're looking to God. And we don't want to be, as a nation, in between them and God. We want to support them and encourage them, but we don't want to be, like an idol, that they look to us as opposed to looking to God. And again, I think early reports are another, God-blessed operation as they have taken preemptive strikes to protect and defend their country in the face of repeated threats from Iran.
Excellent point, Tony. I think that is an excellent point that we need to embrace and take ownership of, that Israel is not reliant upon any other than God himself. And that's a great point. I know you were just over there in Israel just a few short weeks ago. In fact, one of the first thoughts I had when all of this unfolded was last night was you being there just a few short weeks ago. And in fact, we're hearing initial reports even now, and Chris Mitchell referenced this just a moment ago, that even as we speak, Tel Aviv may be under attack right now. Rich, is where you were, where you flew out of. All commercial flights and planes have been removed from there. It's an incredible, just the timing of it all just has got to be very significant to you as well from a personal perspective. Well, what did you see on the ground?
I kind of wish I had been there. I was communicating with one of the...
I'm not surprised that you would say that.
Well, I was getting reports from Governor Israel Gantz, who is the governor over the area of Judea, where we spent a lot of time. And he was sending me messages this morning, and he was showing me the command center. They were in the command center because while this national effort is going on, and there's concern about the incoming missiles and rockets that might come from Yemen or obviously from Iran, there's also the internal threat coming from the terrorist activity in Judea and Samaria. And so they're on high alert. And so he was saying, we've been up all night monitoring the situation, and I had been in his command center when I was there. And I said, man, if I were there, I would be hands-on, I would be helping you, but unfortunately can't get there right now. But look, it's just that they live with this constant threat, and it's been intensifying since October the 7th. And in the meetings, and I think I've been there 4 times since October the 7th, and met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, I think 3 of those 4 times. And, behind getting the hostages home from Gaza and eliminating Hamas, next on their list was Iran and this threat of this constant nuclear threat from Iran. And so, again, I think they saw the window of opportunity beginning to close. They became very antsy, if you will. But this is, again, a very thought-out plan. I was speaking to former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo this morning, and it is very evident that this plan has been on the drawing board, just waiting for the opportunity to execute it. And they did, and so far it looks like they executed it with great precision, as they always do. Back in my days when I was working in the anti-terrorism field, I trained with the Israelis, and they're some of the best, without question.
Without question. And as a former Marine, I know you know exactly what you're talking about. Tony, I want to hit on this with you as well, just from a sheer political perspective. I don't think any of us are surprised ultimately that we are at this point where Iran has the capabilities that they have. But I want to go back several administrations ago. Play clip for me, and then I want to get your reaction to this, Tony.
For decades to come, inspectors will have access to Iran's entire nuclear supply chain. In other words, if Iran tries to cheat, if they try to build a bomb covertly, we will catch them. So the bottom line is this: whereas Iran was steadily expanding its nuclear program, we have now cut off every single path that Iran could have used to build a bomb.
Wow.
All right. Should I laugh
Your
now
reaction.
or later?
or cry now or later, one or the other.
So two points on that. Again, referencing my conversation with Mike Pompeo this morning, and I worked with Mike pretty closely when he was Secretary of State because I was chair of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom during that time, and he made religious freedom his #1 foreign policy objective. But you might recall his first speech as Secretary of State, he went to Cairo, and he very clearly articulated that he was a Christian, he was a follower of Christ, he believed the Bible. The big challenge we've had in our government for decades now have been, especially when it comes to our foreign policy, is that we have had those who have a secular mindset and are dismissive of religion and don't believe that people believe what they say they believe. And even with some of those that have been in negotiations with Iran most recently, these people are driven by a ideology that sees the destruction of Israel and any non-Islamic country as fundamental. And so there's no reasoning to be had here. There's no, and as I said, Mike Pompeo, as we were discussing this, said he didn't see a positive outcome in terms of them laying down their nuclear program. It just wasn't going to happen. One other aspect I do want to say, because I think this was, I don't know if it was a part of the decision that Israel made to go at this point, but earlier this week, the International Atomic Energy Agency, actually the governing board issued a resolution saying that Israel was being non-compliant with their non-proliferation obligations in their nuclear plan. This is the first time in 20 years that that's happened, that the international community actually recognized this. And so I think it makes it a little more difficult for the UN, although it certainly won't hold them back, but it make it a little more difficult for them to criticize this moment of action by Israel, given the fact that clearly they were moving toward the nuclear weapon.
Absolutely. And, with this, I think it's also important for us to highlight that this move by Israel is not against Iranians in general, but against the tyrannical dictatorial regime.
Great point.
I think that's important.
Great point, because if you'll recall a few months back, Prime Minister Netanyahu actually spoke to the Iranian people and said that very thing. We don't have an issue with you. We want you to succeed. We have an issue with the regime that is suppressing you, repressing you, and threatening us. I think, Jody, I think the Islamic regime going into this had a choice. They could lay down their nuclear program, eliminate it, and hold on to power, or they could have their nuclear plan and their nuclear program taken from them and destroyed and lose their regime. I think you're going to see a regime change in Iran.
Well, that's another thing we need to be praying about. If that takes place, that change could be for the good or for the worse. And so that's certainly something we need to pray for now.
Right, because
let me ask you one more thing, Tony. No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, we know that from history, when one evil regime is replaced, if we're not careful, that vacuum is filled by evil once again. So that is an issue that we need to be praying about and, from a policy standpoint, advocating for.
Absolutely. All right. I think we just have time for one other question. I wish we had more time to go down other avenues. But not everyone is supporting Israel's move here. Are they just turning a blind eye to the reality, the threat that Israel is posing? Or what do you think is behind this? And how can Christians be praying right now at this very important time?
Well, Jody, I just say, why do we see the rise of anti-Semitism in the world today? And I think it is not just a hatred of Jewish people, and this is going to anger some people, but I think its reality is that really anti-Semitism is a hatred of God. And so I think anything that they do is going to be criticized by those who have an issue with God.
Well, at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. There's no question about this. Tony, I want to thank you so much. I know, you've got a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings, a lot of plates spinning in your world, just as a general rule. But this just added yet another 2 or 3 and in your orbit. And I just want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule for joining us today.
Always glad to do it, Jody, and encourage people to pray. Just text Israel to 67742 and join us in praying for Israel.
Absolutely. We have a prayer pledge, and that pledge is going to be going to our ambassador, Huckabee, as well as Prime Minister Netanyahu. Again, text the word Israel to 67742, and you can participate as well.